Hi, my name is Lance Simmens.
Hi, Lance. How are you?
Hi, what would you like to know?
Will you tell me more about what happened with Huffington Post since this weekend?
Yeah, I've been writing for Huffington Post for almost 8 years now. In fact, about 180 articles I've written for them. And a couple of years ago, I actually combined about 86 of those articles into a book entitled The Evolution of a Revolution. And I've never had an article turned down, which is fine. If they want to turn down an article, I don't have a problem with that. If it's up to them. If they want to run it, that's fine. If they don't, that's fine too. But I've never had one turned down. So after seeing this documentary on Thursday evening, on Friday, I was so moved that I drafted a piece. And the piece was entitled, Why Our Kids Should Hate Us. And I submitted it, and they sent back to me, it's been published, you can find it under this link. And I started sending it out to friends of mine. And about a half hour later, I started getting calls saying, there's nothing there. I said, what? So I went back in and I tried to pull it up. And sure enough, 404 comes up on the screen. I've never had this happen to me before. And I was quite puzzled. And no matter what I did, I tried to resubmit it, but no matter what I did, it would not come up. Then, the next morning, when I woke up, and I tried to go in to my account, I was denied permission. So my account effectively has been frozen out. Now, I don't know if this is a technical glitch. I'm not technically literate, so I don't understand how these things happen. But it certainly does give one pause, and certainly feeds a certain degree of skepticism if in fact this has been purposefully pulled down. Now, pulling down the article is bad enough in itself, but denying me permission to access my account, which essentially freezes me out of participating further with the Huffington Post, I think is quite extreme. And if in fact this is a purpose and purposeful activity on their part, I think it is seriously troubling. And I want to continue to write for them. I enjoy writing for them. I've written several books. I find writing to be very cathartic, and I find it to be an expression, given that I've spent 40 years in politics and worked for 2 presidents and 2 United States senators, 2 governors, the United States Conference of Mayors. This is my life. Public policy is my life, and even though I'm retired now, I find it extremely worthwhile to weigh in on events of the day. So I want to continue to write for them. I sent probably half a dozen messages to the blog team to ask them if in fact something is wrong, could they fix it? I've not heard anything back. I sent an email to Ariana herself. I have not heard back. And I actually have a contact person at the Huffington Post, which is very unusual, who I've worked with before. And I sent her an email, and I've not heard back. So, as of the minute that we sit here today, and I do understand that it's a weekend, so maybe nobody works on weekends, but I find that hard to believe because articles are continually being churned out 24/7. I am very perplexed as to what exactly has happened here, and if in fact this is a concerted effort to deny even a discussion, because the article that I wrote was thoughtful and provocative, but it wasn't that provocative. I was basically asking that this issue and the allegations made in this documentary be discussed, and that we have a national forum or a national dialogue around this issue to discern whether or not, in fact, there is a causal relationship between vaccines and exponential increases in autism. I think that is a fair question, particularly after you see the documentary. There are allegations in there. They should either be proven or disproven. But to basically say, well, we're not going to discuss that, I think is antithetical to the type of society we all want to live in, the type of governmental system that we're supposed to have. And government, once again, is potentially involved in a massive failure to do its core function, which is to protect the health, welfare, and safety of its citizens. And whether it's the methane leakage at Porter Ranch, or the earthquakes and public health consequences of fracking all across the country, or PCBs in high schools, not only here in California, but across the country, or lead in drinking water, not only in Flint, Michigan, but in major cities all across the country. These are all examples of government failure to provide the appropriate regulation, the regulatory function that keeps the private sector in balance, or honest, if it were. So I find this very, very troubling. And I may well here be the victim of asking maybe too penetrating, or maybe asking the right questions. And if that's the case, we're in much deeper trouble than some of us, like myself, thought.
Thank you. I had a very similar experience in terms of writing about when SB 277 was introduced, and I was also locked out of my account. I was subsequently given entry back into my account, and I've also recently just wrote another piece and sent an email to Ariana asking for direction as to what might possibly be something that I could do to make sure. Yeah, and I know that she's very busy, so I've not heard back. But what you speak about really reminds me of censorship and of keeping things under wraps, really controlling at what information is disseminated to the public, which is exactly what Vaxxed talks about.
You know, I used to work for the Screen Actors Guild. I was their National Director for Government Affairs. And this was about 15 years ago. And I had an opportunity to work with a lot of older actors because the guild was split into the progressives and the moderates. And the progressives had the tendency to be the older actors, the ones who had gone through the blacklisting days, and the ones who really felt the need to protect the younger actors coming up from the types of injustices that they witnessed in the 50s and 60s. And when you mention, particularly in this town, in Los Angeles, when you mention blacklisting or censorship, for those who have been around a long time, and they're getting fewer and fewer, but for those who were around during that time, that is a clarion call. And I don't use the term censorship lightly, because I think it is a very, very serious offense. And I am not a cynical person, but I am a critical person, and I'm a critical thinker. And if in fact we are looking at even a hint of censorship here, then this is something which needs to be addressed, and it needs to be addressed in a forthright manner immediately. So, if Ariana were sitting where you are, I would say to her, you want to avoid the appearance of impropriety. We want to avoid the appearance of censorship at all costs. And we should have an open discussion and an open dialogue on every issue under the sun, and nothing should be off limits.
Mm-hmm. And would you recommend getting together online so that everyone around the world could tune in, do a global live stream? Would you recommend places in different cities? Because of your experience with public policy and your political career, what would you recommend with regard to this issue and other issues?
Well, there needs to be some sort of investigative or penetrating analysis of just exactly what's going on here. Mm-hmm. And, you know, Richard Dreyfuss and I wrote an article 2 weeks ago in the Huffington Post entitled "A Complicit Media," in which we took the media at task mm-hmm. for essentially being complicit and not doing its investigative function. And Huffington Post is a creature of the media, like it or not. Mm-hmm. So if in fact there's even a hint of a stench here, it needs to be dealt with.
Yeah.
So my call to Ariana would be, you need to get on top of this, and you need to get on top of this immediately. And I would be more than happy to sit down with you and work with you and work through this. And I'm sure that there are plenty of others associated with this film who would like to do the same.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I appreciate all you shared.
Thanks.